Cyrano. Peter Dinklage stars in a dreamy musical adaptation about unrequited love, the tragedy of fate, and the courage to be self-confident. Wait, Matt Kay, did you just say Dinklage in a musical? I did indeed, Rye. Will there be swashbuckling? Can Dinklage sing? Is this antique story ripe for retelling, or is it best left unsaid? Ryan and I headed to the front to find out.
He's here.
Cyrano?
Cyrano.
Based on the Steve Martin comedy Roxanne, Cyrano takes... Sorry. I was kidding, of course. To be completely honest, I had always thought that the story of Cyrano de Bergerac was a Billy Shakespeare joint, but I was mistaken about that as well. It is actually based on the 1897 Edmund Rostand play, and since that time, not too much has changed in terms of courtship. For those of you who are unfamiliar, here's the basic plot. Cyrano is a dashing, but in this version, diminutive member of the city guard. What he lacks in stature, he more than makes up for with his gift of gab. He's also secretly in love with the beautiful Roxanne. Complicating matters are an evil duke who controls Cyrano's fate to some degree, and another guard, Christian, who, though dim-witted, is handsome and catches the eye of Roxanne. When Roxanne approaches Cyrano to more or less tell your friend I like him and get him to write me a note, the two men combine into one imaginary lover. Christian's fine looks and Cyrano's fine words. What could go wrong? I have to admit that the film's music takes a while to get to the good stuff, but by the time the haunting refrain of Wherever I Fall comes on, I was fully invested. The cast is wonderful, but this is Dinklage's show, front to back. The whole film rests firmly on his shoulders, and he shows us once again that while he's not a giant in literal terms, his talent surely is. The scenery and costumes are also absolutely dazzling, capturing perfectly the pomp and circumstance of the time when men wore makeup and wigs. I do have to complain a bit, Rye, that the battle scenes could have been a little better to show the horrors of war and match more closely with what was my favorite song of the film. Cyrano is a sure thing for the romantic, slightly melancholy, especially at the end. It nevertheless carries important lessons. Perhaps this is why the story has endured for so long.
Somehow you made it through this entire review and didn't mention the band The National, and I'll get there. But I never thought we would be reviewing a Peter Dinklage musical. But here we are. And I have to say this up front, I'm a very, very big fan of the band The National. I've seen them numerous times in concert. One of the times they co-headlined Lollapalooza with Arcade Fire, one of the 1-2 best punches I've seen back to back. And if you haven't seen their 2013 documentary, Mistaken for Strangers, do yourself a favor and give it a spin. I highly recommend it. Knowing that, I have to say I was a big fan of Cyrano. But for me, it was the songs, all about the songs, the lyrics, and the way they're performed moved me emotionally. I recently heard Peter Dinklage in an interview say that he was not trying to sing like Matt Berninger, the lead singer of The National. Well, he failed, and I love that he did, because the whole time I watched Cyrano, I thought, well, this is what The National would sound like if Peter Dinklage was the lead singer. If there is a weak point, Matt, and I think you sort of hit on it a little bit here, it's the story's not that deep at all. We know the story, and it just sort of floats there. However, director Joe Wright populates the musical with great sets, authentic costumes, and very talented actors, especially, like you mentioned, Peter Dinklage. I was a fan of this one.
How can you say that the story is not too deep? I mean, this has got a lot of layers to it, actually.
How much deeper? Once we get to the fact that Roxanne doesn't know that she's actually in love with Cyrano. Right. It's really, that's it, pretty much. Yes, there's a few side stories that have some layers to it, but pretty much that's the story.
Okay, it's not a complicated plot. This isn't a heist movie, but the questions about unrequited love, it's also about confidence. But like Cyrano is confident in certain things and not others. There's a lot to parse out from this movie, I think.
We got to talk about Dinklage's performance on just singing, because...
Do we?
Again, being a fan of The National is Matt Berninger. He more or less sings like, the best way to describe it would be like a poet in the sense that he doesn't go say like Tom York Radiohead, where he's going to carry a tune a certain way. It's very much about the lyrics. And
he sings like Peter Dinklage?
Well, not quite like Peter Dinklage, but I think Dinklage fit well with the way these songs are written for Dinklage to sort of sing the way he was going to. You know, he wasn't going to carry a note for a minute or 30 seconds. It was very much like he's just going to do the Dinklage performance. This is
Right.
it. This is as far as I'm going.
Peter Dinklage gets a passing grade, not for his singing.
I liked it, though.
It was okay. It was fine, but like it was a little rough at first, and then I got used to it.
So the jaw-dropping moment for me is the one that you mentioned, and
Yeah.
we should talk about it here. And it is Heaven is Wherever I Fall is the name of the song. And it should be noted, so that what happens here is the guards are going into battle, basically waiting. They're all writing letters to loved ones, sort of summing up their lives. Some of them are
It's
writing...
a suicide mission.
Right. Some of them are writing to their wives. Some are writing to their fathers. Heaven is Wherever I Fall is how they end it. And it's very moving. And Glenn Hansard from the movie Once, who you didn't know, also popped up as one of the guards. It's not a main part, but it's great because that's probably the best musical number, and it needs to have some oomph. You know, it can't just be Peter Dinklage in there. He gets away, like you said, a passing grade throughout this. But for this number, we really needed some talented singers, and enter Glenn Hansard and a couple of others of these guards that start singing, and they go out onto the battlefield. I watched the scene, believe it or not, 3 times. I really was moved by it, and in fact, would have included it on my favorite scenes of the year. We just hadn't talked about the movie, and I knew we were going to do it very soon, so I'm saving it for here. By far one of my favorite scenes of 2021.
Acting while singing has got to take an extra layer of talent that I can't even imagine. Kudos to these talented performers. They did a great job, and the song is just fantastic. I had no idea the music was by The National. Not super familiar with them. I saw them at Riot Fest.
That was back when it was at Humboldt Park over there.
That's right.
I saw them there as well.
You fell flat on your face at that Riot Fest.
Yeah, I did. No, but yes, The National is great. And in fact, they did the music for the musical this played on Broadway, and then they decided to turn this into a movie. Here we are. It is a 2021 release, Jawheads. It's hitting theaters February 4th. It may be playing in some of the larger cities already. Keep an eye on it. And you think Dinklage has got a shot at all of maybe getting nominated for an Oscar here? Or I know they're pushing him anyways.
It's a pretty loaded category this year. I think in another year, certainly he would have. I hope he does. He's great. He needs to get recognized. I think sooner or later he will.
How about a movie poster quote, Matt?
Romantic, tragic, dashing, and poetic, Cyrano is a feast for the heart.
I went with Peter Dinklage fronting The National is something to behold.
There you go. How many jaws?
3 jaws. I like it. How about you?
I went 3.5. We got some swashbuckling. We got some romance. We got some tragedy. Took a ride on this one. I really enjoyed it.
Jawheads, when you do check out Cyrano, let us know what you think. Write us feedback at cinemajaw.com, or if you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet.